Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Maureen Chiana of the Mindsight Academy. Maureen, it's awesome to have you on the show.
It's lovely and awesomely great to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely to have you on as well. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Maureen so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Maureen is the CEO of the Mindsight Academy. Maureen is a neuro leadership and resilience consultant, award speaker, and neuro-coach. Maureen works with leaders worldwide, helping them achieve mental resilience, increase performance, productivity, and profitability by leveraging on brain science to change behaviors and habits to be conscious leaders. Maureen, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm
Awesome.
ready.
Let's do it then. So to kick everything off, I know I read your bio. I wanted to hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story, and we'll let you get started with all the awesome work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in biomedical sciences. So I'd worked for quite a few years in biomedical sciences, in research, and then became a lecturer, and then decided to open a business, which was absolutely fun. But after 4 years, had to close it. And at that point, I felt like a failure. I felt that, I felt so vulnerable. I felt ashamed. I just felt so low. But then I would say research brain kicked back in, and I was curious to find out how people became successful. How did people fail and bounce back up? What was it that what makes them different from others? Just a lot of questions, and that led me into neuroscience. And I got into neuroscience and literally started researching the brain, and I discovered the power of the brain. And I started using that in a way to linking it up with leadership, linking it up with managing people, getting teams to work better. And I just discovered the power of the brain in terms of anything we're doing as human beings.
Nice. That's it's so powerful. And especially, resilience is one of those keywords, especially during this time. And I
Yeah.
think that often, at least I don't feel like we are sometimes aware of the power of the brain, of the impact it can have on our lives, obviously, our businesses and organizations, us as leaders, the people that are around us. And I love that you've been able to obviously have the science backing in the information, but also help so many leaders be able to I guess, perfect and increase that impact that they can have.
Absolutely. It really just makes a difference because once you understand how the brain works, then you're able to understand why you're feeling the way you are, and then you know what to do about it. And I find it so liberating, and it just really sets you apart.
Yeah, and I love that you use that word liberating because I almost feel like sometimes you just think that things are just happening and you don't have
Yeah.
any at all or any control at all of what's happening. But a lot of times you do if you really can understand the nuances, understand the science behind the brain and what exactly you can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just adding in quickly, in this time that we're going through with the pandemic, one of the things that people struggle with the most is that lack of control. Especially when you go into lockdown, like we are in the UK now, people just feel that they've lost control, and that creates anxiety. And I just find that, okay, understanding that it's a normal reaction of the brain to feel anxious when there's change or when there's uncertainty. So if that's the normal reaction of the brain, that means I can do something about it, and that's the key.
Yeah, and I love that you added that in because I think so many times some we can beat ourselves up over that normal reaction. We can say, "Oh, I shouldn't feel that way," but
Yeah,
it kind of sounds like you're saying if you understand that that is a normal reaction because there's change happening, but this is the steps or the things that you can do in order to maybe counteract that or to improve your outlook on that or to affect the brain in order to kind of see it as maybe something different than what we sometimes jump to.
absolutely. That's it, spot on. Because once you understand that it's normal, you know what to do, that you're free. Then you
Exactly.
can then take those actions. And like now, instead of focusing on the problem, it's now focusing on the solution.
Mhm.
What can I do? I'm actually in control. Yes, I'm in lockdown, but I can control my own situation and do something about it.
Yeah, that's definitely powerful, and I think a lot of times we forget the limits and the energy that we have, and if we put more energy into the solutions rather than the problem that's before us, that allows us to really kind of tap into that CEO entrepreneurial mindset and leadership mindset. And so, I know I kind of touched on it a little bit, when I read your bio. Could you take us through a little bit more on how you serve your clients and the different ways you help to support them?
Yeah, so I've got an online academy, which is one of the main things. I'm so pleased I did that about 3 years ago. I set this up, and it's kind of come out to be really fortunate now. So it means that people can just go on and buy the online courses, do
Mhm.
it at your own pace, which is absolutely fantastic. And then every month, anyone that buys the course literally joins my leadership community, and every month we have a live coaching session where you can ask questions. And I also do neuro coaching, which is brain-based coaching. So really helping people, navigate through their life, through their business, really strategize in terms of their business. And I have a podcast as well, which is called the Lead to Excel podcast. I'm not very regular, but it's there. And there's a lot of fantastic topics that we've been talking about. So it's one to really look out for. And my main website as well has a lot of information on it, which is maureenchiana.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate that, Maureen. And I think definitely, I don't know if you find this or you hear this from people that you work with, having those different ways by which people can take in that information is so huge. By, of course, being able to go through the academy or listening to the podcast, or of course, going to your site. It provides so many different ways that at the end of the day, people can understand, the ways by which they can kind of control their brain or take more
Yeah.
control over things that they sometimes realize we forget that we have control over.
Absolutely. It's really fortunate that we can do it that way. And actually, we also do virtual training. So,
Mhm.
live training, which is also because some people prefer that, which is fine. But I think the key is just being able to get that information, however works for you, because we all learn in different ways. It's getting the information and using it. The key is you've got to take action. So it's not a case of you have the information and things would just happen. You've got to work on the brain to change it, but it can be done.
Yeah, we forget that it's sometimes like a muscle, like you're working in the gym, that you have to work it out on a regular basis. So you do it consistently, and then you start to see once that change happens, all of a sudden you have that reaction that you want to have because you've been working on it over and over again, just like you're doing sit-ups or push-ups or something like that.
That's it. So basically, what I help you do is teach you how to rewire your own brain.
Mhm.
That's it. And because it's your brain, so you have the skills to rewire it or to reprogram it. And then you can then use it in however you want. Because situations happen, change is constant. Life happens. But at least with those tools, you'll be able to navigate life better.
Yeah, and it's so huge because I think so many times we get so obsessed over controlling things we cannot control. We can't stop or not have there having been a pandemic and things like that, but we can control our mindset. We can control the things and how we react to these certain things. So I love that you kind of arm people in so many different ways with that information and that knowledge. And so I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for yourself or your business and your company, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
I think for me, it's being able to give people the tools to rewire their brain and develop emotional intelligence. Because you see, every thought that you have creates an emotion, and it's this emotion that drives the decisions you make, helps you solve problems, helps you communicate better, helps you form better relationships, helps you attract the right people. So for me, it's really being able to help people rewire their brain, develop emotional intelligence, and basically become limitless. That's mine.
That's so powerful, that limitless piece, because again, a lot of times those limits come from us. But you mentioned that emotional intelligent piece, and does that go hand in hand with the brain wire and those kind of hand in hand symbiotic, or are they kind of separate entities that you work on?
No, they're actually because when you have a thought, it creates an emotion. So it's all in the
Mhm.
brain. So what I do is teach you what goes on in the brain, linking that thought process to the emotions that you have, and being able to manage the emotions will enable you manage the thoughts so you can manage the decisions. So they're all linked. You can't separate them, but the fact is that they're all intertwined because that's the way the brain works. So in any aspect I'm going through, whether it's the neural leadership or whether it's emotional intelligence, you find that you end up learning all because they're all linked. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it gets to that. I often say, like, that we forget about the human aspect of business and often
Yeah.
of life. And we forget about that intertwined aspects. And there's like a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's like your thoughts become actions, your actions become
Yeah.
words, and or your words become days, and your days become months, and so on and so
True.
forth. And we forget about those foundational pieces and the
Yeah.
power that we have within them to direct them how we want them to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I wanted to
Okay.
ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
For me, it's really planning my day effectively. So when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is my quiet time. So I pray and just really meditate on the past day and what I'm planning to do that day, and really have a plan of what I want to achieve. I'm a morning person, so I have to do all my real, hard tasks in the morning and get it done, so that at the end of the day I can do things that I don't really need to. I don't need that much brain power. So it's really, for me, it's planning effectively each day.
Yeah, and I think that to me, it goes right in line, in my opinion, with what you kind of talked about before, controlling the things that you can control. We can control planning the day, and it doesn't always go the way we want it to go. But
Yeah,
if you plan, at least it gives you somewhat control so that you're not worrying about everything. You at least have
yeah.
some things in motion so that you're able to really be present, really be active, get in that, problem solving kind of mindset as well, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, when you plan and things don't work out, it's time to reflect. Why hasn't it worked out?
Mhm.
What can I do differently? And each step of the way, you're growing, you're learning, there's a change. And that's the whole point of really getting better at what you do. So it's just not getting fixated on, okay, because it's a plan. A plan is a plan. It doesn't mean that it has to be that way, but at least there's some structure to what I want to do. Because I found that without that, I end up getting distracted by so many things. So
Yeah.
with the plan, I can, I really have a guide to what I really want to achieve. And sometimes it all goes all over the place and it doesn't happen, but that's okay. I can then move it on to the next day and carry on.
Yeah, that's powerful, especially that reflection piece that you talked about, because it allows you that opportunity to level up, to grow, to get better, to see how you can improve those things. But I think again, being able to kind of take those actions of planning it out gives you more likelihood of being able to kind of control that and understand that not that everything will go, according to plan, but you at least have an idea and you can kind of reflect to see how you can improve on the next
Yeah,
opportunity.
absolutely. So
Awesome.
true. So true.
So, wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So, this could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Okay, for me, the key is to develop self awareness. Develop self awareness, learn how to rewire your brain, and become limitless. I know I've said all this before, but those three things will really set you apart. So, and for some, it could even just be getting a mentor, a coach, or somebody, but it's taking that responsibility to actually do something for yourself, understand yourself, and learn how to really take control of your brain and decide, be determined, be intentional about what you're doing so that you can achieve the success you deserve. So, self awareness, rewire your brain, and become limitless.
I absolutely love those three things, and becoming self-aware, because I think so many times we often aren't aware of who we are or even what might trigger us or things that we can use or things that we want. But being able to really master yourself and understand yourself again gives you that opportunity to
Mm,
understand that, okay, I had this reaction, so now I know that my brain is doing X, Y, and Z. So let me try to rewire that if I wanted to go to a different way. You become aware of yourself and you start to master yourself. It allows you to be more in control with, the world and things that can come about, and really be able to have those other kind of two aspects is so huge, because I think sounds like creates that foundation so that it builds that momentum towards where and how you want your life to become.
Yeah, it's really basically taking that control back. And once you take the control back, then you are the one driving your life. You're living the life you want to live and not the life that you feel people want you to live. Or I always say, whose life are you living, yours or somebody else's? It's
Mm.
really taking that control back, running your business the way you want to run it, taking it where you want to take it, and not just jumping around or doing what you see other people doing. So it's really been intentional.
Yeah, and we forget that we have that ability to do that, to be able to move towards being, limitless, as you said, and being intentional with how exactly we do that. So I love that you help so many people do that, and I love that you reminded us of that as well. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit. I mean, I'm sorry, I wanted to
Okay.
ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition
Uh-huh.
of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Maureen, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I think it's being, CEO is Chief Executive Officer of your life. Every single person is a leader. And I think that's the key. So it's being the leader of your life. So that's what CEO means to me, being the leader of your life, being the leader of your business. And you can't lead your business, you can't lead anyone else until you started leading yourself. So it brings us back to that whole point of self awareness. So it's really being, first and foremost, being the leader of your own life. And then anything else is possible.
Yeah, I think there's a quote that goes along the lines of, "I wanted to change the world, but then I realized I needed to change myself, and then the world
Yes.
started to change." And
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that speaks so much to
Yeah.
what you're talking about and your definition and that perspective, because I think it's so powerful. Because we're always out. We could often, I should say, be outwardly focused on, "I want X, Y, and Z to change," or A, B, and C to
Mm-hmm.
change, and they're all outward things. When in reality, we need to kind of start within ourselves to look at our emotional intelligence, look at our brain, look at all of those aspects and see how we can be the change within ourselves and see that in the world. And I think that when you start to understand that, it's a very powerful, liberating, as you said, a place to be in, and really starts to create a lot of phenomenal momentum.
Absolutely. And there's a saying that goes that you see the world not as it is, but as you are. So
Mm,
once you discover how you are, it then makes it really opens your eyes to a lot of other things. And you find that a lot of things would stop stressing you out, or you not be anxious about a lot of things, or you manage your expectations of people as well much better, because you're aware that actually what you're seeing or expecting is really coming from you.
mm.
And once you can manage yourself first, then you'll be able to really manage others. So once you can control yourself, then you can be a better influencer to other people.
Yeah, and that's extremely powerful. And I think that that probably hits home with a lot of people that are listening to this. Is sometimes when we don't have that limitless mentality or understand that we can do and create anything, a lot of times we have to look and hold up a mirror and remind ourselves that that might be a reflection upon us and our limiting beliefs, our mindset, our emotional intelligence, all of those different aspects, and how that helps us to direct, and see the world how we want it to be. So, Maureen, truly appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, find out about the Academy, subscribe to the podcast, and hear about all the awesome things you're working on.
Okay, yeah, no, but it's basically just be in control, take that control back. Surely in the climate we're in now, there's so much going on, but the fact is that don't be a victim of life, don't be a victim of COVID, don't be a victim of this pandemic. Be in control, because the brain belongs to you. The same way you learn how to drive, the same way you learn how to do things, is the same way you can actually train your brain to do what you want it to do. So that would be my key thing. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, you can visit my website at maureenchiana.com, or the Mindsight Academy. There are courses there that will really help you. There's a course on building resilience so that you can thrive through times of uncertainty. It's a fantastic course, and it's one that anyone can do, whether you're in business or whether it's for your career. It will literally help you achieve that resilience, because being able to adapt to different situations is key now, because things are changing. We're not going back to the way things are. There's been a shift. So how well are you adapting? So all this will really help you adapt to the change. And if you need coaching or one-to-one coaching, by all means do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, and it's been a great pleasure being here today. So I've really had fun.
Maureen, thank you so much. Pleasure is definitely all ours. And we will have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you and see all the awesome work that you're doing. But I appreciate that reminder and the work that you're doing, because like you said, we're in the new normal. Things are not going to go backwards. They're not going to go back to how they are. And as soon as we understand that, it allows us to put our energy towards the solutions and figuring out how to reinvent ourselves, our businesses, and so many different other aspects. And when we're spending time there, it really allows the true entrepreneur, CEO, and business owner to flourish and blossom. So appreciate you for the work you do again, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
All right, and I'll cut it off here. Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh again from the I Am CEO podcast, and we had a phenomenal interview with Maureen Chiana of the Mindsight Academy. Maureen, it's awesome to have you back on the show. And for people that maybe are just listening to this aspect, could you take us through a little bit more on what you do, all the awesome work that you're doing to kind of help support the clients and leaders and people that are really trying to work on and improve their mindset?
Yeah, so I'm a neuro leadership and resilience consultant. So I work with leaders worldwide, helping them understand how to develop mental resilience, build confidence, create a strategy for their business, all using brain science so that you can navigate what's going on in your brain, adapt your behavior to achieve that increased performance or the goals or results that you want in your business.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. I think that what came up, during the interview was there's so many different ways in which you do that, because you have your podcast, you have the academy, you have virtual sessions, and you do so many different ways to help people to get the knowledge and information that they need. And I think it's so relevant during this time.
It is absolutely so relevant. And before the pandemic, I was doing a lot face-to-face training, and I had the online academy. But now, fortunately, we've been able to do a lot virtually. The
Mhm.
podcast is going, and then also I've been doing a lot of coaching. But the online academy has been really fantastic because you can, purchase a course and do it at your own pace. And then I'm there to guide you along the way. That's helping you actually apply the knowledge that you're getting, because I always feel there's no point in just taking training and going off, because most people won't even know how to use it. So that's why the coaching comes in really useful. And this time, with everything going on, building that resilience is key to be able to get out of this standing, because even if you fall, you can get up. And that's what resilience is all about.
Yeah, and that's so huge. And I love that phrase you use, building resilience, because I think it came up, during our interview where we talked about it comparable to going and doing exercise or going to the gym and being able to do push-ups. And maybe the first day you do one push-up, the next week you're doing three or four, but it doesn't just happen overnight. It's a process. And we forget that same aspect about resilience. So could you talk a little bit more about that and what, I know you touched on what exactly it is, but how exactly people maybe have a misconception on the power of the brain and how exactly they can build that resilience.
Yeah. You see, I think understanding the fact that the brain is there to keep us safe, it's there to protect us. So anything the brain perceives as a threat, it would try to keep us away from. So,
Mhm,
and one of the things that it sees as a threat is change,
mhm.
uncertainty. Anything new is a threat to the brain because it doesn't know it. So, in this environment we're going through, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of anxiety about the business. How would I manage? Would it cope? Would it survive this? So, there's a lot going on in the brain, and all this is new to it. And what the brain then does to keep us safe is activates the emotional center of the brain, which then causes a lot of anxiety and stress if you start having the same thoughts over and over and over again. So, what you then do is understanding that, okay, my brain is literally being hijacked by my emotional center. So, what do I need to do now to control it? And those are the skills that I give you through coaching or training, so that you can literally put a break on the emotional center of the brain so that your cognitive brain, which is the decision making part of the brain, the frontal part of the brain, can kick back in, and then you can then start making the right decisions, because decisions that you make under extreme emotions usually will be wrong ones, because they're
Yeah.
coming from a place of fear, anxiety, and worry. So to be able to build resilience, what it just means is really controlling the brain, managing that emotional center, and navigating through these difficult times, so that even if you fail, even if you fall, even if things go wrong, you know that, okay, I still have hope here because I'm still alive. So I'm going to get up and do something different. If one way hasn't worked, look for a different way. But it's really been letting that cognitive part of your brain be in control and not the emotional part. And that's really what resilience is all about.
Awesome. That's so powerful. There's so many kind of nuggets, within, that. And I think that so many times we, first of all, don't know that we have that kind of power within us to kind of recognize that. But I think too, you spoke to something, and I know it definitely came up during the interview as well, too, of being aware of kind of the normal, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but just kind of the natural reaction of change. Like a lot of times our brain wants to keep us safe. So when all of this uncertainty, all this change is happening, we're automatically kind of on pins and needles and we're on guard, we're tense. And not kind of recognizing that, not being aware of that is, to me, it sounds like the very first thing that we can kind of do to our detriment. We try to jump into, let me just do X, Y, and Z, and not really saying, okay, there is a lot going on right now. There's a lot of change happening. So let me first, really understand that, really take that as what it is. But now let me take those next steps towards getting to where I want to be.
That's honestly spot on, because one of the key things I mentioned in the podcast was emotional intelligence, and that's really being able to manage your emotions. And the first part of that is the self-awareness,
Mhm.
and the self-awareness is really you knowing who you are, understanding why you're feeling the way you are, because a lot of the feelings that you're having are coming from a very unconscious place. You might not even understand why you're feeling worried or why you're feeling anxious. You just have the emotions. So that awareness is the first thing. And once you identify your thoughts, what you're thinking, once you identify your emotions, then you can then do something about it. So it's coming from a place of power. And that's why it's one of the things I talk about is what I do is give you the tools to empower yourself, because that power you've got it already. So it's really using it. And that's what self-awareness is. It's really knowing who you are, understanding yourself, and then being intentional about the actions you're taking so that you're making the decisions. In fact, what I'll say is you're actually responding to what's going on instead of reacting, or you're being very preemptive and taking those intentional decisions, being intentional about what you want to do, and not being driven by situations or circumstances. And another thing is also being in a place where you actually enjoy the challenge. Okay, that, this is really unknown, but I'm going to embrace it and grow from it. And that's what you get. That's the key about being self-aware. One of the things I mentioned is developing the self-awareness, that, and because that helps you then to rewire your brain. And the rewiring process really is just, changing what was there before, changing the triggers that are causing the anxiety, changing things that, or the thought process that you already have that is that's causing you to self-sabotage, that is causing you to procrastinate, that is causing you to be afraid, or causing you to not take action, or causing you to take the wrong action. It's really rewiring. And then the bottom line is, with all that, you'll be able to then become limitless. And becoming limitless is what enables you to achieve the kind of success that you want.
Yes, that is so powerful. And I think that so many times when we want to do rewiring, it's important to know what's there before you
Yeah.
start to rewire. If you start rewiring, you have no idea. So that's why I love that self-awareness piece, and taking that action is so huge, because you can learn yourself, you can know yourself, you know, all those aspects. But if you really aren't taking those actions towards that, and those intentional actions that you said so well, we really aren't starting to see that change, and that opportunity. And then, you know, as you mentioned so well and said so well during the podcast as well too, you have that opportunity to be limitless, and start to see and experience the world and how you hope it to be. And I love that piece. And I know I'm very, you know, motivated, and I enjoy competition and things like that. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this, is you see it as a challenge, you see it as you already know you have it within you, but now it's time to really showcase that. And I think that's, again, one of those, I think, shifts that we can take in what's happening, not getting so focused on the external things that we can't control, but really getting focused on, I know this is not exactly how I wanted it to be. I know this change is scary and all of those things, but let me see and show what exactly I am and who I can be, and how resilient I can be to overcome this and to come out better. I think when you have that mindset, it really changes things, and you start to see things as opportunities rather than as problems or obstacles.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think once you start seeing things that way, one, the main thing is that you once you start thinking that way, your brain, what you're telling your brain is, actually, I do like this. This is fine.
Mm,
And what the brain will then do is go and look for solutions
mm,
within your brain, because the brain is so clever, such a complex but extremely clever, organ. It will start looking for results or looking for solutions, and then you start coming up with lots of ideas about things you can do because you've told it to go and get that information. So, it's basically all your brain is doing, all it can work with is what you give it. So if you give it information that I'm looking for opportunities in this whole climate, I'm going to excel, I'm going to come out of this successful, then that's what the brain will do. It will guide you to be able to do that. But if you're focusing on the negatives, the fact that things are really bad, your business might not make it, then that's all you're going to be seeing, because that's what you're wiring your brain to open your eyes to.
Yeah, and that's absolutely so powerful. And again, as you said so well, sometimes it manifests itself in so many different ways, self-sabotage, or choosing the wrong decisions. A lot of times we do that unconsciously. So why it's so important to have that basis in place. So Maureen, truly appreciate that bonus section and all the awesome insight that you gave to us. For people that might just be listening to this, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you, subscribe to the podcast, hear about the Academy and all the awesome things you're working on?
Yeah, there are many ways. In fact, LinkedIn is another good way to find me, Maureen on LinkedIn. I'm always there. And then my website is maureen.co. And you can listen to my podcast, Lead to Excel podcast as well, or visit the online academy, which is the Mind Sight Academy. So sight as in looking into the mind, mindsightacademy.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And again, we will have those links and information in the show notes. And I love the Mindsight Academy and that name. A lot of times we need to have awareness about a lot of those things, and to get that look and that vision and that insight in 2020 way of
Yeah.
looking into how exactly our mind is working is so powerful. And once you can do that, it's hard to turn back. So appreciate you again for hopping in on this bonus section. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Gresham.